It's time for the quarterly BIS update. Today, middle of the summer, I know there's plenty of folks that hopefully have summer holidays. For those of you in Asia, it's late evening. In Europe, afternoon, and good morning to the US guys. I still see that we have a few people on, which is very good. I appreciate that. We appreciate that. So today, myself, Ulf Persson, I have Marcus Dörner with me, and I have Christian Gassman with me as well. We're gonna hopefully give you an idea of what has been delivered with the latest service packs, and also give you some ideas on what's coming, for the next quarter. As always, everything you see, you get the PowerPoint, the recording. We always appreciate your questions and feedback, so I encourage you to ask questions whenever. Of course, if we don't have time to manage all this, we will always get back to you one way or the other. And before we move into the details, let's just clarify again how this session now, kind of the focus for the sessions. We started this 2 quarters ago. So we will address what we refer to as BIS server with the latest, following the same structure as before, what has been delivered and what's coming, following the 5 pillars that we defined some time ago. And this time we will also look into some of the services that are also related to BIS server. This time we will talk a little bit more around mapping services, and that's why we have Marcus on as well. He will share more about this a little bit later on, and we will also address a little bit around e-invoicing, just to give you an idea of what we have there. But before we do that, Christian, let's dig into BIS server. So please go ahead. Let's move this forward.
Thank you, Ulf. Hello, all from my side. As Ulf mentioned, we will start with the tried and true BIS server. What have we delivered in this past quarter, ending with the version 6.7.190. In just the sheer numbers, we've provided again a good amount of user experience enhancements and fixes. Same on the integration capabilities. You also see an uptick in the security changes in this past quarter, certainly driven by the LLM AI security research that's taken a hold in many areas. We see this also in the third-party libraries that we ship and deploy with the BIS server. The release cycle increases or accelerates because of these security findings. Today we will again show a number of enhancements across the platform, mostly driven by the day-to-day user experience. What have we provided you as in order to make your daily operations easier and more efficient. Let me start with the user experience. We have provided some enhancements in the navigator around the search and the way the documentation is linked to the searches. We also are providing better validation feedback and handling of transports. In the process monitor, we've, for example, added better filtering in some of the combo boxes. We also improved working with large number of processes, for example, restarting multiple processes so that you have easier way of working with yeah, errored out processes and finding and handling those. In the API monitoring, we've added an advanced search query builder similar to the process monitor. We also refreshed the portal style and login page a little bit. So a number of small enhancements, but targeted or targeting the feedback that we typically receive from you as our users. Let me jump right in to the demo. Let's bring up the browser with our environment here. You see also on the login page, as I mentioned, we've refreshed the design a little bit, made it more lightweight and a little bit more modern, aligned it also with our cloud portal and platform. In the login screen itself, we have now also the ability to better support, let's say, mixed mode authentication. Probably interesting for development and test environments where you have maybe a mix of users that can log in with single sign-on, but also maybe test users that you maintain locally in the application. So you have the ability to let the user then choose whether they want to log in with local credentials or with the single sign-on capabilities. I'm going to use single sign-on here in our demo environment, and it will bring me into the application chooser that you are familiar with. Let me take a look at what we have improved around Navigator transports. In the past, we've set up the target systems, so the system where you send your outgoing transport to, typically with a fixed technical user for authentication. We've changed or enhanced this now with an ability to use credentials when you actually send the transport, so that instead of using a fixed user, we can utilize personalized users. That allows us to better audit and trace who sent transports from one system to another. So instead of persisting credentials here in the target system configuration, we selected to prompt for credentials when the transport is sent. So how does this look like? An outgoing transport that we would send over to another system would then pop up with a login screen that requires me now to enter my credentials here for sending it over. So in the target system, this is now tracked with the specific user sending the transport. Now, when we switch over to incoming transports, I wanted to highlight a few enhancements here. So a transport that is received but not applied yet, you can open it and you will now get a bit more details about what actually changes with the transport and whether this transport is valid and can be immediately deployed. So you see we have a number of objects in here, a mix of entities, a mail partner, and others. All of these are set to update the existing object if it exists, otherwise it would add it. We see here that there are two rows that have little circular arrows here denoting that these actually are changes to what exists in the target system. So all the other entries here are actually not changing anything in the target. The data is already there and nothing changes in those entries. So that makes it easier to see what the transport will actually perform when it is deployed. And I additionally also see when there are validation issues in certain objects. So for example, here in the entity for fault handling, I can now inspect and see that there's a reference contained here that is not found in the target system. So I have an immediately feedback telling me, yep, this transport is not completely valid because a reference is missing. So it makes it easier to quickly glance over the transport and identify issues. We also added a parent path field here that makes it easier to distinguish objects that may have the same name but come from different locations, like different places in the entity tree. So it shows immediately the path to the object so that I can clearly distinguish those two entities, for example. Now, when I look at a transport that has been applied successfully, like the first one right here, open up the history, you will now see that we do compact the history a little bit. We will show only those actions that really triggered a change, where a field in that transported object was truly changed. For example, here in the sequence, user was changed from SEEBURGER to Michael Rehberg, or here we have some cases where a record was modified from unknown name to in the criteria. So truly those fields that were changed within the object. Everything else that has not been changed is still tracked as well, but is not displayed by default. You can change that using the filter, and you will now see that there is a debug severity here that when I enable that shows me everything else that was also applied but triggered no change in the actual object. So that we kind of hide all this information that truly doesn't give you much benefit in most cases, but is still tracked as a debug output of the transport. So hopefully this will make it easier to understand what a transport change is, and also trace and audit what the result is at the end when it was applied successfully. In the area of system settings, we've made a small but interesting enhancement in the area of the initiator rules. When you work with services, with SOAP services specifically, in the past, you had to define an initiator rule for each operation of such a service. We now have the ability to basically define one rule for any operation in that service. Instead of having to define one for each here, get and post, I can just define a single rule that assigns them all the different operation to a process. So that's helpful, of course, for services that have a large number of operations, reduces the configuration work to get this set up. Finally, I'd like to hop over to the API management and monitor. I mentioned in the API monitor, we have improved the query builder here. So similar to the process monitor, I can now build my search queries with a little wizard. Makes it easier now to select and build the query. I have some content assist here, like status code or method, and I can then search for those monitoring entries. So rather than having to work directly with the syntax, the search syntax, I can build it here with my little wizard. Again, it's very similar to how it was also how it is also offered in the process monitor. And then finally, in the API management, we have added a little improvement for working with variables in the service policies. Let me open up the order service here as an example. We see that we have a policy here to add a custom header. And what has changed here is that the value for such headers, or value in general, can be a combination now of static text and variables in any order and in any cardinality. So I can have, like you see here in this example, text mixed with two variables, and those are then resolved to the runtime data to then create the custom header in this inbound API call. So much more powerful as it was in the past. Yeah, so these are some of the enhancements we've added recently in the different applications and different functionalities. Let me go back to our planned enhancements in those areas. For the transports, we have an enhancement now in the pipeline that allows you to edit transports in the target system. So this is another piece of the puzzle to make it easier to work with transports, especially if they are maybe not fully valid when you send them to a target system. Maybe some reference is not correct. Maybe a master data object is different in test as it is than it is in production. So you have to adjust the transport in the target system. Maybe you want to select a different map. So it allows a little bit more editing the transport and making sure that it is valid in the target environment. There's one question here on the side. Is there any work underway to simplify or automate the AS2 certificate renewal process? We do have some enhancements in our cloud environment. I'm not sure that those will also be brought over to the server. I think it is important, though, to note that the AS2 certificate renewal is twofold here. It is, of course, often easier to use CA-based certificate trust, where you don't necessarily directly handle the AS2 or the partner certificate, but you trust the CA issuing those certificates so that you don't have to renew the individual partner certificates frequently. Simplifying or automating, yes, to a degree where this is possible. I think AS2 has a certificate exchange mechanism, but this is not something that is widespread, at least from our experience across the industry. But maybe now with those new mandates, it might get more traction again as well. So still a little bit open how we can approach this. As I said, in our cloud environment, we've also experimented or enhanced some of it using AI agents to allow easier updates of certificates across the platform. What else have we planned around our apps in the process monitor and log viewer? We will provide a improved log search for especially for distributed systems where we unify the log view across all the instances so that it becomes easier to track log output across the entire environment. We're also researching and planning to add more chat assistants to the BIS documentation. So basically train the language model on our BIS documentation for easier chat-based research in the technical documentation. So some of the planned enhancements for the near future. In our integration capabilities, we've released a few enhancements that are of note here. I showed the simplified web service setup that reduces the number of initiator rules. In our BIS mapping runtime, we've added support for REST calls using the post and put operations. So calling those services directly out of BIS mapping is now also possible. I also showed the enhanced variable support in the API manager. I also want to highlight the file transfer server. Here we have added functionality to allow multiple users with distinct credentials to access the same account so that files can be basically shared in a single account with different users accessing it. And then also the SEEBURGER connector website where we list and describe our available BIS connectors has been further updated to both show the BIS server connectors, but also the BIS Hub Integrator Workspace connectors that are available in our cloud offerings as well. What else have we planned here? We're still working on implementing a WebSocket client, which is required currently for the German energy market, but will also be available for other use cases, of course. We're still also working on further mapping migration support for the BIS mapping runtime so that you can migrate your big mapping repository to the more modern BIS mappings. We're adding more support for the HashiCorp Vault for credential handling, think passwords and public-private keys. So those are some of the areas where we're adding further enhancements. In terms of technology improvements, familiar slide if you're in this meeting regularly. We've again updated the Java runtime. Security-related enhancements are always shipped by Azul for the Java runtime. So check those release notes if you're interested specifically. We've also certified both Microsoft SQL Server 2025 as a system database and then the SUSE Linux Enterprise Server 16 as a operating system platform for the BIS server. What else is planned? We are adding Microsoft Entra ID authentication for Postgres database. That's certainly interesting for Azure deployments. We're making more enhancements in the area of smart retry and sequencing configuration. So again, enhancements primarily out of feedback from you all as our users. In terms of operational cost reduction, we've added improvements in the support agent to collect process dumps when you, for example, run the diagnostics to report an issue back to our support desk. Makes it easier to include the relevant process dumps directly in such a collector file. We've added some more enhancements in the deployment manager to work with composite deployment tasks. Yeah, and we also added some improvements for the adapter transmission dumps. If you used those before, you might know that they were so far stored in the file system and had to be manually deleted. And now they are stored in the data store and are automatically deleted after a very short time so that we don't collect these files locally and have to purge them by hand. Oops, excuse me. What else have we planned in this area? We will add a tool to better view and monitor system connections, both connections between the BIS instances within a single system, but also external connections to, for example, backend systems, so that you get an easier view of the connectivity as a whole and can proactively monitor this and prevent any connection issues within or between those systems. Yeah, we're also adding some enhancements around logical system management. Might be interesting for migration from on-premise to cloud or even vice versa. So improving operations here in this area. Finally, in the area of deployment models, I've showed you the SSO login changes there in the login page. We're also adding some improvements in the landscape manager, notably supporting CA-based shell authentication here. And we're adding some support for the secure proxy also in the API manager. So rounding out some of our deployment options here in the environment. Notice there was another question around the adapter transmission dumps. So yes, correct. They are visible now. Since they're not on the local file system anymore, they can be viewed directly from the control center. So the control center app tracks those dumps, and you can see them directly in the control center app, basically for each adapter where you have enabled those dumps. So we have a viewer built in there rather than having to go to the operating system level and finding them in the file system. Yeah, finally, in our area of deployment models, yeah, we're continuing to work on cloud and Kubernetes support and improving scaling here, improving operations in DevOps, GitOps models, where we describe and define applications and services as code. We're also still and continuing to evaluate cloud native database variants. So this is just ongoing work that will always kind of happen in the background based on experiences with those cloud or Kubernetes deployments. Yeah, this was what we have delivered in the past quarter for our BIS server. I will now let Marcus take the helm for some information about BIS Hub.
Thank you very much, Christian. All right, so welcome from my end as well. Indeed, I have the pleasure today to introduce you a little bit to the BIS Hub, but mainly I will focus today on the mapping side of the BIS Hub. Before we start with that, the BIS Hub in general, with the integrator workspace, is our cloud-based design point where you are capable to actually enrich your BIS landscape by designing mappings, workflows centrally, and of course, where we are capable to provide you the fully fledged assistance based on AI, because here we actually have the capability and technology to enrich everything with latest and greatest AI components. The package integration service for mappings will be our main focus of today, where I will as well demo a little bit. And as said, it is expand your horizon, so it won't be limited only to cloud-based customers being full MS or iPaaS. It as well is suitable for on-ground or on-premise customers, which we invite to use as well. As one of our first products which we have launched, we are introducing you to the BIS Mapping Repository Service, which is our central entry point for all mappings. And why mappings? In the past, mappings were something which were hidden a little bit more or less. Nobody really was interested in mappings. They were always part of an integration, but never the real star of an integration. But that's started or tended to change the recent years. Now, as I've been in with SEEBURGERs for 18 years now, ever since being in the mapping area, I do see this trend heavily, and not only ever since we have e-invoicing. The business colleagues are more and more interested in the functionality of mappings, that they are transparent, that they can have a look at it, that they not only can actually just look at it, but actually change mappings as well. So we had to deliver an answer for that. And in order to do so, we now introduced our mapping designer service alongside to the mapping repository service. So what is the idea behind that? You are capable to connect from any given IDE, being our BIS Mapping Designer on-premise installation, just like as well Visual Studio Code if you want to. So any given IDE is capable to connect to our Git-based repository. And you can store and change mappings in there alongside with, for example, colleagues from SEEBURGER, colleagues from your company. From any given endpoint, you can collaborate on the mappings. You don't have to host the repository on your own. We will take care of that. From there onwards, we can deploy your mappings. You will be able to not only deploy them on cloud-based instances of our BIS server, but as well to your on-premise deploy systems as well in the future. So this is why we said it's not only for cloud-based customer, but as well for any given customer base out there. And all the functionality we will add in the future, especially the AI-based ones, they will heavily rely on this repository service, because here we have everything in our hand. We can design everything around it just for our needs, and therefore can resolve all the external technical depths we have to take care of. So everything is in our hand, and so we can deliver the best services well integrated into our cloud area. For the first value add for the repository service, we have added our designer service, which is, you can call it a web-based mapper, if you will, where we will provide in the future, just like as we have it in our IDE locally, the full capability of editing and testing, writing mappings from scratch. And with time being, we will basically migrate all the IDE features we have in our local instance, in the local IDE BIS Mapping Designer. We will migrate everything to the web to provide you there the same function base. All right, so what we have already, and the goal is more or less the first parts are already mapped. So we are now already supporting all the various formats like XML, JSON, Edifact, X12, and more to come, even though the most critical ones are already in place and do work. The versioning and code controlling is there as well. We will, of course, enhance this tremendously to provide you all the functionality needed to use it as a service. To make this more transparent to you, I will directly jump into a demo now where I will show you how the look and feel of our repository service is. And let me then just take over the screen. And here we go. Okay, so what we do see now is the entry point, which is our customer portal or your customer portal. For those being in the full managed services or in iPaaS, they might know this already, but we do offer this as well for every user being a customer of SEEBURGER nevertheless. There is now a new service you can book, which is the Mapping Designer service. This always comes with the repository service alongside, because it, of course, relies on the repository service. And when we jump into this, we will basically see all the repositories which are tied to the customer. In this case, we have one repository, and you can have up to 10. And within the repository, you see all the mapping project, which as well can be just 1 to any given number. And within a project, there is a mapping. So connecting from a local instance to our repository service is possible via the access token. So you do create a token here, which you can then use in your local IDE to connect using the URL, which you can get from the repository view. You can copy this URL to your local IDE, add the token, and then you are ready to connect. How this looks like, I will show in a second. So when we are within our mapping project in here, we do see we have one mapping being available. In this case, we have it from Edifact to JSON. You can as well create a mapping from scratch if you want to. You can upload schemas which you have available. You can upload whole schema folders. You can derive it from sample data, just like you know it from our BIS Mapping Designer service. In addition to this, we will, of course, add and enhance our asset catalog, which is currently already available in the IWS area for various APIs. We will do the same for mappings as well, so that we offer you schemas for the EDI message types. I mean, now we are 40 years in the business of EDI, so we do have a tremendous amount of schemas already available, which you don't have to then come up on your own. The same we can do as well for mapping templates. So for the most common EDI scenarios, we can then as well offer you mapping templates, so you don't have to create from start. For those who have already seen the showtime last time, where we had created mapping based on data-driven migration assistant on AI, the same thing will be available here in the cloud as well. So it won't be available in the local IDE. It will be available here, because now we have the full AI integration already be available, which as well means that our SIA, our SEEBURGER Integration Assistant, is already there for mappings, just like you are used to it from your BIS Mapping Designer alongside. The context is now in the area of mappings in this case, so it's very context sensitive, and you can ask all the questions around mappings just like you would expect it from any AI assistant out there. All right, so this is now more or less the repository service. When we are talking about designer service, that seamlessly starts now when I click on a mapping, that you will get presented a web-based mapping interface. This interface is fully customizable. So for those people being afraid of the code editor, of course, you can remove it. I'll just keep it now for the demo, for the sake of the demo, to show you how we align basically changes you perform in the tree area as well as in the visual editor, that they do reflect in the code, because we as SEEBURGER, we were always in favor of having a low code instead of a no code base, which gives us now a lot of benefits, especially when talking about AI, because now we have an open source or an open known language being XPath and XQuery, which is known for with any given large language model out there by default. Okay, so how does it work? As you can already see, there is just not a tree. You can see the bold letters in here, which do represent already values. And for this, because most mappings do have sample data already available, when we click on raw data here, for those colleagues being in the EDI area, they are very well aware of their EDI formats. They might be overwhelmed by a tree. They want to just directly jump into the message itself. So you can directly go into it. You have a highlighting. You have the whole data available at time. And therefore, we do overlay it as well into the tree to just show you the values which we have currently available. The same more or less applies on the target side as well. When we have a mapping there, we basically can select a mapping. It directly converts then when you select one of the available files and lays it over into the target as well. And here we have a raw data view as well. So in this case, we are mapping to a JSON. So what you see now here is when you change code, it will directly be available in our target here as well. So for example, when we now click on this, for example, sender, code qualifier, you see on this side here, you see now where it's coming from on the left-hand side. So the 0007, you see it where it's mapped to. In the visual editor, you see where the source is coming from, and you see a direct representation of the code in our code editor. So all three or all four fields do get along. And when we then, for example, change now in our visual editor, the source, you can either choose where to get the data from, or you can just say it's I don't know, fixed text being test123. You click on apply. You direct see on the right-hand side, the code is being changed. The code on the target side is changed, and you even see that the mapping is directly being converted, because when we now click on the target data, target raw view, you directly see that the test 1, 2, 3 is there already in. So there will be a lot more Meet the Experts coming, especially into the direction of our web-based mapping service, how it works, how it looks like, how it feels like. Just to be a little bit more visual, what it means to access the repository service from any given IDE. I have as well here my BIS Mapping Designer Eclipse-based, the full-fledged IDE, as well connected to the same repository. So now I can go again to this web part. I can click on save, because now I have my test 1, 2, 3. Mapping has been saved. Now I can go in here and I just get the latest changes. And there we see already, now we should have here the test 1, 2, 3. So when now we are in sync with our web-based repository, now we can just put in 5, 6, 7 test 1, 2, 3. We just click on save. We can of course test here as well. We have the same testing capability locally being available, seeing now 5, 6, 7 tests. And when we say, okay, that's what we want to change, we now take the mapping, we just stage it, say update, commit and push. Now we can go back to our web area. We just reload in here. And now what we can see is now the 5, 6, 7 test 1, 2, 3, as well as being updated here. So that means from any given endpoint, you can access the repository. Even from your on-premise instance, you can connect there. You can change it from any given IDE and then see the same in here. And if you want to perform a deployment, for example, you can do it either locally from your IDE. You can, however, do it as well directly here. You can put a version on it and then put the deployment artifact directly onto your system, being test or production. So that is actually only the first step here. That was the most important one, but from here onwards, as said, there is a lot more to come. There will be all values added like a pipelining. There will be a documentation area, AI-based documentation, mapping creation based on test data pairs, mapping creation based on any given paper map, for example. All that we are now capable to put into the web because now having our developer services or the designer service available, we can call all the endpoints like compiling, converting, and all that is now available. And we have one central space for you to create your mappings, to store your mappings, to migrate your mappings. And as said, this is only the beginning. And when we meet again in the next quarter, I'm pretty sure that I will be invited again because mappings are now back on the table. So yeah, there will be a lot more to come. And I'm really looking forward to show you all around the upcoming features in that area because this is developing very fast. Okay, so
Marcus, Ulf here. So,
yes,
of course, you will be invited again, just to answer that. But I have a question here.
sure.
So there's a question related to storage. Will there be any limit on storage for the repository?
Not that I'm aware of right now. Of course, when we talk about gigabytes, it might be a limitation here, but we tend to have mappings in the several hundred megabytes, which is perfectly fine. So I'm not aware of any limit right now, but I mean that might develop over time when there is a lot going on. So
Cool.
not yet.
Good. I think, no, thank you very much. And thank you to you as
Absolutely.
well, Christian. I think we can wrap this up. Hang on for a second. Let me do like this. Get the presenter mode back to Christian. And then before I think we're good on all the questions. Again, if there are some other questions, we will of course follow up with you. Just to add one more very briefly, again, Marcus talked about various type of services that we're adding on, and obviously e-invoicing has been one of those services that we've had for quite some time. There's obviously a lot of regulative initiatives going on in Europe, but next slide, please. It's not only for European, so to say, European entities, and I know that I can see that some of the customers that are on right now may be using this already. It's also important for anyone who's doing business within Europe, so to say. I'm not going to go through all of these features, but we believe it's important for you to be aware as well that we have obviously a team working with regulative initiatives in general. E-invoicing is very important, and we have over the years, but then also now recently, because laws are changing in various ways. We are adding on support for those countries that are mentioned here. There are some deadline to be ready and to support and have the compliance in place. France is one of those countries that have some deadlines coming up in September this year. So we wanted to inform you about this as well, that there is obviously capabilities available in BIS Hub related to invoicing, supporting these countries, supporting the technology, obviously mapping and other functionalities part of this as well, as Marcus mentioned. And again, this is for information for you. Having said that, I think we are done. Maybe a little bit